Hello and welcome to Book of the Mouse Club, episode 50, Monday, December 28th, 2020.
Morning, monsieur.
Where are you off to?
The bookshop. I just finished the most wonderful story about a beanstalk and an ogre and...
That's nice. Marie! The baguettes! Hurry up!
I'm sorry, but how can one possibly pay attention to a book with no pictures in it?
My dear child, there are a great many good books in this world without pictures.
I almost bounced clear out of the book. Some bouncing, huh?
Come home or make myself known.
J. Thaddeus Turtle, Esquire. Have you never met him? You will find his story in this delightful little book, The Wind and the Willows.
I've come to return the book I borrowed.
Finished already?
Oh, I couldn't put it down. Have you got anything new?
Welcome back. I'm your host, Courtney, and I am joined, as always, by my lovely co-host, Emily.
Hi, Courtney. Happy holidays. It's great to be back after a few days of rest.
Yeah, this is probably one of our closest back-to-backs, but it's also a special occasion. In addition to the holidays, it's our 50th episode. When we started in 2018, we made a commitment to do at least one episode a month, like a normal book club, and we've kept that promise, and sometimes even exceeded it, like our string of several episodes this spring. And we're bringing you another episode this month thanks to our friends at Chronicle Books who gifted us Disney and Pixar's The Art of Soul and Find Your Spark, a journal of gratitude and self-discovery. We were excited for the film, so we wanted to pair these episodes with its release. As avid Disney fans, I'm sure a lot of you have fit in this film in the past few days since it released, if you're listening now. But this is your official spoiler warning. If you haven't watched it, pause and come back and join us after you've seen the film. Emily, can you give us a little plot summary to ground us in the description of each book before we move into our discussion?
Sure. So I have some background here for the movie, the book, The Art of Soul, and then the Gratitude Journal.
Perfect.
So first, let's talk about the film. Today might be the best day of Joe Gardner's life. A disgruntled middle school music teacher, Joe is finally given the big break he's been waiting for, the chance to play a gig with Dorothea Williams and fulfill his calling for becoming a professional jazz musician. That is, until an unexpected accident changes everything. Stuck in the soul world between life and the great beyond, Joe meets 22, a new soul that has no interest in life on Earth. Together they form an unlikely partnership to get Joe back into his body so he can realize his lifelong dream. Pursued by otherworldly agents, Joe and 22 must journey from the wilds of the astral plane to the sprawl of New York City, and in chasing Joe's dream, they together find new meaning in their time on Earth. So that was background of the movie, and now for The Art of Soul, here is its description. In The Art of Soul, this interdimensional film is explored through mesmerizing visuals, including character designs, early concept art, storyboards, color scripts, and much more, all paired with insights from the production team on the creative filmmaking process. From the cosmic to the cosmopolitan, peek behind the curtain at the making of the incredible new world from Pixar Animation Studios. So overall, it asks, what makes you, you? This question is at the heart of Disney and Pixar's thrilling new animated film, Soul. From the bustling streets of New York to the mysteries of the cosmic realm, follow middle school band teacher and talented jazz musician Joe Gardner on his interdimensional journey to find the answer. So in this book, we're going to get lots of concept art, storyboards, character designs. We also see sculpture, which is interesting. I think that's something we don't see too much in concept art, as well as some insights. I think it's the shortest book we've read word-wise, but some insights from the production team and creative filmmaking process. Authors, we have Tina Fey writes the foreword. She plays the voice of 22, and we know her as a celebrated writer, actor, and comedian, and a producer. We also have a familiar name to the podcast, Pete Docter. We just read his co-authored book, Mark Davis in his own words. He is the director of Soul, as well as other Pixar films such as Monsters, Inc., Up, and Inside Out. And then finally, we also have from the co-director Kent Powers, He adds to the book as well with an introduction, and he is the co-director and screenwriter of Soul and an award-winning playwright and film screenwriter and storyteller. I believe this is his debut on the Pixar stage.
I believe so.
And now here's a little bit about the Find Your Spark, a journal of gratitude and self-discovery. The back of the book description says, "Who am I? Why am I here? Self-exploration is a journey, and sometimes we need a roadmap. Whether you know what you're meant to do or whether you're still unsure, this journal will spark reflection and gratitude and unlock insight into your own journey. With creative prompts and gorgeous illustrations inspired by Disney and Pixar's Soul, these pages encourage finding those things that inspire you, appreciate little moments every day, thanking your mentors and guides, and taking your next leap forward." So these were super fun to get in the mail and to kind of give us a sneak peek into Soul, because we got these before the film came out. So Courtney, to prompt our discussion here, we're going to start with the art of Soul. And I want to know what you thought, what your first impressions were of Soul looking at the art before you had a chance to watch it.
I didn't do that. But I think this will be a fun. No, it's okay. We hadn't kind of planned ahead in terms of that, so I'm definitely looking forward to hearing your thoughts on it, and I think this will be a great perspective in terms of previews. I've certainly seen the art of books at Disney on the shelves or at Barnes & Noble, but often, I notice them after a film has come out. This is the first one that I own, and I am very big about, I don't like having things spoiled for me. Like, even if it's just somebody else's opinion on a movie, if I'm really excited for it and I haven't seen it, I'm like, let's just wait and compare notes after. Like, I don't want you to influence how I'm going to feel about this. So because I was really looking forward to this film, I made the conscious decision not to flip through the book beforehand because I didn't want to go in with any preconceived notions, but I did really enjoy going through it after. So I will turn the question around to you, since this is a discussion, and how it was before and after for you.
So I did look through it before. I didn't feel like too much was spoiled since I kind of knew at least the beginning plot point. They've kind of got that through in the trailer. But looking through the art, the first thing I noticed is just how colorful this is. And I thought Inside Out was very colorful. And it is in like a very rainbow way, the way like you're inside Riley's mind and there's all the different like emotions with their colors. But the first thing I noticed was just how colorful this was. And it's colorful in a different way. It's not like as vibrant, like Crayola box kind of color that like Inside Out was, because there's all the emotions are the colors of like crayons, all 5 of them. And while this uses the rainbow, there's a lot more, as the book describes, dynamic with light, how lighting is used, how transparent things are. And overall, I was just like, this is going to be a very colorful film. And I was very happy seeing the film also, the different colors come through, especially the whole beginning of the book talks about how they had to make sure you understood when you were in the physical world and in the soul world, and how they use different colors and lighting there. And that was really cool to see ahead of time to understand their intentions, because then watching the film, I understood and looked for those color cues and changing when I watched the film, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, I think now that I was already going to revisit the film at some point as a Disney fan. It's not often that I just watch one and never watch it again. But now, as you said, kind of getting a little background on how things were designed, I would like to revisit it, with more paying attention to the background. I feel like with Pixar, I always give them a second viewing anyway to try and find the Easter eggs for myself. I'm like, just focus on the movie the first time and then find the Easter eggs. But correct me if I'm wrong, this was your first time reading a Art of Disney book as well, right?
Yes, I have not. I think I've also similarly flipped through ones maybe at World of Disney if I saw them, but I never bought one. So this is also my first art book. And they're pretty.
Yeah, I really liked it. I was surprised, and I don't know if they're all like this, or maybe it's unique to this film and the artistic approaches that the directors and, the producers took. But I was surprised at the variety of artwork that's in this book. You kind of hinted to it in your introduction, I expected certainly to get concept art, character sketches. I think of now it's Star Wars Launch Bay, but if you remember the magic of Disney animation at Disney's Hollywood Studios, or even before when it was Disney MGM Studios, the outdoor queue, which towards the end was never really used, was filled with concept art for characters, and you're like, oh, Ursula doesn't really look like that. She has all kinds of different variations, just pre-designs. So I was expecting more along those lines, but I was pleasantly surprised just to see how much there was. I'm actually on page 101, and there's the character of Counselor Jerry, who has multiple facets of Jerry, but he or she, I think Jerry's kind of any gender, takes different forms, but they're very abstract, and I love the wire sculptures that are shown on page 101 of how they created. It's almost, gosh, I'm not an art history major, but do you get a Picasso vibe from them?
Yes. And okay. I was going to say what I really enjoyed about this art because we did have They Drew as They Pleased. You and I now own multiple.
Yes, we've seen
volumes.
Concept art.
But I feel like art that I've seen before, or also other Disney films in general, there's a consistent art style throughout for the entire film or for an entire artist. Looking at They Drew as They Pleased, we had specific artists, and for that whole chunk you could see a very distinct style. We could look at Mark's artwork from Mark Davis in his own words, and you can very distinctly tell Mark's style. But what's interesting about Soul and the art of Soul is we have so many different artists involved here, but also the way the soul world and the physical world are so different. There's lots of different types of art here. You have more realistic when you're in New York City, and then you have the modern Picasso. I don't know. I'm not an art history person. You're right to say the right words here. Abstractness that's the only word I can really think of the soul world. So it's kind of cool that as you're flipping through and looking at the artwork, it does change because you have two different worlds and therefore multiple art styles to express those worlds, the physical and the great beyond.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of what we see in Imagineering texts as well. So it's no surprise to me that in our recent episode, Pete Docter collaborated with an Imagineer to create that Mark Davis text, because in here there were 3D models of parts of the soul world made out of clay, and I'm that's something that you absolutely see in those Imagineering texts. We saw a model of Western River Expedition, so I was just really pleased to see the variety of artwork. I felt like I was in a museum going through different wings and seeing exhibits, so I appreciated how it was laid out as well.
And some of the art that I really enjoyed, I'm looking at page 71, where they had the jazz club graphics and the different posters. And what I really liked about an art book that's really focused on this one film, and I'm sure the other art books are like this as well, is getting an opportunity to really just look at the scenery without animation in front of it. And now I'm oh, there are posters. There are billboards and things on the street corner, and just the amount that goes into just creating the scenery, because we get so focused sometimes watching Joe and the cat run down the street 22 them working together, that sometimes you'll miss just how beautiful and intricate the scenery is.
Yeah, the whole world building of immersing, this takes place in New York City, but it's their fictionalized structure of the world. You're not going to put an ad for McDonald's or some kind of product placement.
Right. On page 149, there's more signs for different businesses. So as at the bottom, you have the rows of buildings that he probably walked by at some point in the film. And I missed in the film the florist on the corner, the downtown diner, the gourmet, Bobo bubble tea. But in the book, I take a second and I can actually see them, appreciate them, and then probably in those multiple times that I watch these films now, I'll actually look for these.
I thought it was cool when looking at the artwork. As you said, there's not a lot of text in this, and I want to circle back to that in a moment. But really, it's just a caption of who did the art and the medium. A lot of it, as expected, is digital, but just a few pages after, I think the next page, 74, is acrylic on canvas. I mean, certainly it's a photograph of that, but just I was so surprised by the variety of the mediums that were present here. If I can circle back to that text point, though, as we said, this is our first time reading it. I feel like I would have liked just a little more context. Certainly it made it very easy for me to read it in one sitting, flipping through and looking at the pictures and processing them myself. Some stuff has some background, but it's very minimal. I love behind the scenes features. No surprise in this podcast, as it's often my go-to resource that I list. But just, I'd like to know more about these artists that are listed, because there's several different people who contributed to the art of this film that then went into this art of the film book.
Yeah, it would be nice to know more about the different artists. And I'm looking through, there's so many names. You're looking at page 74, 75, the acrylic on canvas. And then he had ink drawings, that's Don Shank. And then just on the very next page, Celine Yu, Devon Stubblefield, Daniel Lopez Munzo. There's so many names. Ernesto Nemesio. I apologize that I'm butchering some of these names, I'm sure, but there are so many people. And then I turn the page, 2 more pages again. Peter Rowe, Steve Pilcher, Dave Sterick. So there's a lot of artists, because you can keep flipping and find new names, even as a couple repeat. I just turned again. More names. Bill Pressing, Mariah Yee, Ricky Navira. So wow, yeah, lots of people worked on this film between concept art. And I think that's something, just in 2020 in general, you and I have started to look more at art from Mark Davis, from
They Drew As They Pleased.
They Drew As They Pleased. A lot of these artists who help create the ideas that then eventually make it to the end. They don't always get the recognition and credit they deserve. So I'm glad that's been a theme for us in 2020, is looking at a lot of concept art this year.
Here's a good example of where they do provide a little background. On page 154, it's a character that didn't make it into the film. Her name's Natalia, and it's just, like, I'm not saying I need, a full paragraph, but it's accompanied by a sentence that says, Natalia was a character in the early scripts of the film. She is Joe's neighbor in Queens with an adventurous past who often carries her dogs, Bracco and Yakko, around in shopping bags. And you can see different character sketch designs. I'm like, okay, obviously she didn't make it to the film. I don't need, her whole backstory, but just a little more context around some of the images would be helpful.
I will say, going into from the book, looking at it before watching the film, looking at so many different characters that they do portray in here, it did make me wonder, where am I going to see these people and what role do they have? And while some were noted that they didn't make it into the film, I was like, oh, wow, well, who did? Who's in their place, maybe who's not in this book. So there's a lot of people, because we're in New York City, there's people all over the place. So they do show a lot of the extras or the crowd in their drawings and art. The band, Dorothea Williams, even though we don't spend a ton of time with everyone in their band except for Curly, they do have such distinct styles and character built into their art.
Yeah, I don't have the page stickied, but there was a full page, kind of a centerfold spread almost, of just crowds, like the diversity of the crowd scene and those different bodies. And this is such a testament, I think, especially as we look at the art, to how far Pixar has come. I can't take credit for this. I definitely came across it scrolling on Twitter. But someone pointed out that, if you go back to Toy Story and you watch Andy's birthday party scene, the kids are all just clones of Andy. They copy-pasted Andy and put different shirts on him. And think about, it was too hard. They really struggled with human faces. It's we don't see a lot of Andy or Sid in the film. It is mostly taking place in the toy world because it's characterized. You don't even see Andy's mom's face until the second movie.
Yeah.
The reason Andy doesn't have a dad is because they're like, we don't need to animate a dad. But you go from something where you're like, oh, look, it's multiple twins of Andy in Toy Story, all the way to just this diverse and immersive world where the characters are so distinct and like so fully fleshed out, that I truly appreciate it.
Yeah, so the Krause is on page 160. And it is truly diverse. Just from looking, there's numerous race, gender, nationalities,
Abilities. There's
religions.
a family.
Yes.
There's a child in a wheelchair.
Yes, abilities as well, fashion.
That's a great point
age.
too. The clothing versus Toy Story. They're just wearing shorts and cargo shorts. Just change the color
Yeah.
of the shirt.
It is truly
it's
amazing.
the
And
technology.
you can tell, like you said, like looking at Pixar, like Toy Story holds up because the story and the characters are fantastic. You can ignore how far the technology has come and still enjoy Toy Story. But if you do put these films side by side in the 30 years of Pixar, 25 years of Pixar, they truly have come a long way. And when you think about the length of that 25 years, that's really not that long, and how much they've grown in just yours and my lifetime. Like imagine like Disney's coming up on 100 years. Imagine where Pixar will be at 50 years.
Yeah. I hope we'll be around to see it. Let's circle back to the film, though. You know, you looked at the book before. We've talked about it in relation. But I'd love to know just what you thought of the film watching it for this holiday weekend.
I thought it was super creative. Again, it didn't surprise me once I realized Pete Docter also worked on Inside Out, that now we have this director who is good at taking really complex, abstract ideas that normally you don't think, let's put this in a family film. I really liked how they approached death, meaning of your own life and reflecting on your own life, in a way that I thought wasn't too dark, but also I don't think it was too abstract either. So I really liked how they tackled the subject. I laughed out loud a couple times. Tina Fey's comedy shone through in her character 22. I enjoyed the jazz. The music was fantastic in this film. So overall, I had a really good experience. I wish I got to see it in theaters versus from my couch. I think that would have maybe changed some of my impression.
Seeing the art larger than life.
Larger than life and hearing the music in that surround. Yeah, I enjoyed it. What about you?
Oh, I absolutely loved it as well. I'm also a big fan of Inside Out. Mental health is something that I'm definitely a champion for and something that I have a personal connection to. So Inside Out really resonated with me. So I was curious going into this, like, how different is it going to be? Is it going to be the same thing rehashed? I think, like others, I was apprehensive. As we often see, sometimes the criticism around Princess and the Frog is that you have a black lead, but I wrote a paper about this in college. She spends like 20 minutes of the film in her own body, and then 80% of the film she's as a frog. I think when people saw the trailer, there was some criticism around that, and we did get back and forth. Now, I've seen some stuff about, the voice switching and the whole cat thing, because I feel like the cat was definitely a surprise. So part of it is that he returns his soul to Earth, but it's in the body of the cat.
Yeah, and 22 gets pushed in with him when she didn't want to go, and soul mix up. She ends up in his body. It's like a Freaky Friday kind of situation.
That wasn't the direction that I expected, but I do want to give the film credit for overall, we weren't stuck in the soul realm. We get to see Joe's life, his extension, his friends, his community, and that puts Black Bodies at the forefront. So I do think it deserves praise for that in terms of its overall story, its community. I can't speak to it as a white woman, but what I've seen online from our friends in the Disney community is that they feel like their culture was represented on screen. So a great moment for that, but also a universal story of finding your passions, your job, your work isn't necessarily your personality. It's about finding the little things that spark that joy for you. So as someone who has had my own struggles with depression, like that last scene where 22, well, towards the end, not the very last scene, but 22 is a lost soul in that realm of souls, and she's seeing her past mentors, their words are echoing for her. I'm definitely someone who gets stuck in my own head and replays moments and fixates on words or things that people have said to me, and how Jo helps her break through that just really was strong for me. And like I could see myself if I was like, I just need to revisit that scene. That's the great thing about having it on Disney Plus. I can just pull it up and fast forward. And I found that, of course, it's Pixar, very moving. So for me, I absolutely loved it. I'm glad it differentiated itself from Inside Out. I'm glad overall, I think this is a step in the right direction for diversity in film, especially animation. Certainly, if there are criticisms, these directors need to listen to that.
Sorry, I believe I saw on Twitter Kent Powers is the first Black director for Pixar. So, yay for that barrier. Still wondering possibly why it took 25 years. But again, if we're going to have a film that portrays a lot of Black characters, I'm happy to see that they had a Black director.
Someone in the room to help steer that
Someone
story.
who had a lot of say. And he wrote Soul, a lot of Soul. And that his story was picked. And so they brought him in as a director.
Fully lead it, because I do feel like it is Pete Docter's pet project a bit, and Kemp came in to workshop it, but absolutely a step in the right direction, and excited to see what comes next for Pixar.
Still moving forward, excited to see, like, with Tiana's new, even though it's not Pixar, but with Tiana's series coming, what progress can we see moving forward?
There should be no reason for her to be a frog in that television show. Like, let's focus on the character of Tiana, what an amazing character she is, and I hope it's kind of taking place after the movie and just immersing ourselves in her world of her restaurant, her dream that came true in New Orleans, and fun adventures that she can have there.
And now that with Pixar, we've seen, like, how we were discussing the diversity of just the crowds and the environments that they can build with their animation technology. I'm excited to see what else they can do now, or how they can keep progressing forward with diversity. With we're still in New York City. There's still a lot of movies that take place in New York City. Maybe because I grew up in Philadelphia area that I'm like, let's get a Philly story. But New York is a wonderfully diverse place, so it's a good background to showcase diversity. But seeing what they have done with this film, I'm excited to see what they do next.
Definitely. So overall, I loved it. And I loved getting more background through this book.
Yeah, same. Really, really good film, and I definitely will be revisiting it again. So let's talk about the characters. Now that we've seen the film and we have the artwork, how do you think the characters align with their art? How they're drawn, what they look like?
I think it was clear to me reading through this, just the type of character study that they did on diverse, like, facial features for these characters. I'm gonna try to find the page right now, though. I'm looking at an ink drawing on page 35 where it's mostly just like jazz crowd scenes, and it reminds me of what's like that restaurant in New York City, like Sardi's or the Brown Derby, where like you see like stylized caricatures of famous people. That image reminded me a lot of that, but I'm trying to track down an image, and let me know if as you're flipping you come across it, that I really liked. And it was a character study of Jo, and it was maybe 7 different variations.
Page 48.
Thank you. All done as a grid of emotion. So it seems like, all right, let's see how this character.
Yes.
No, just kidding.
53.
So all right, 48 was 48 is another great example of Joe with his outfits in different positions, but I'm now flipping, and yes, thank you. 53 is the one that I had in mind. It is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different variations of Joe. So 10 columns of just different ways that Joe could look, and then 4 rows where one of them is him at the piano, so his image in profile. Another's kind of like face on, and he's gesturing. The third, he's deep in thought with his hands to his forehead, and then a full body for the final one. But I just liked seeing, like, this is one character and 10 different ways that he could have looked. Like, the fourth one in is he's kind of short and stout, and one of them he's very tall and lanky. So just seeing how he differs in facial features, in body shape, that was cool character development for me to study.
And also seeing all the different variations, but also like on page 48, all the way through this section of Joe's character, Joe Gardner's design, all the way till you get to page 57 where we have how he looks in the film. It's really interesting to flip back and forth and see what elements they took from each, because even though maybe he didn't end up with the roundest top of his head, or he ended up being taller, you can see different elements from each variation that they're like, oh, but I like how his hands are here, and it's so silly, but also like his feet and how long his arms are, or the shape of his chin. Like, you can see how they pulled different pieces from each variation to have a constructed character.
Yeah, just a few pages later on 77, another character, the fictional Dorothea Williams, who is in this world the famous jazz musician that Joe is catching his break with. You have studies of her, not just in how she looks physically, but also her style, what she's wearing. Like, there's one with her that's kind of like almost in an evening gown, and then more of her, I'd say, contemporary, laid back but still sophisticated style that she ends up with in the film, as well as different facial features for her.
I loved Joe's mom. Libba, she was a great character. And she's another one. On page 40, you have lots of line drawings of different busts, and I can see a whole compilation. Something from each of those sketches made it into her final character. And I really enjoyed her. I think all of us could see a little bit of our own parents in his mom. That they don't want to stifle your dreams, but they want you to be safe and secure. And sometimes that just friction of what your parents dream for you is not always the same of what you want for yourself.
Yeah, it's definitely a lot of universal messages within the film. But I'd love to know what you took away as maybe the overall theme or message. And then did the art in this book help, further that theme for you?
So what I took away from Soul, and I hope everyone takes a little something different that speaks to them, is that this idea of identity and purpose doesn't need to be figured out early in life, at all in life, as long as you are doing things every day that bring you joy, appreciating the world around you. I also took something away from the relationship between 22 and Joe, that she had all of these fantastic mentors, or people we would see as big mentors.
Mother Teresa,
Abraham Lincoln, Einstein, Gandhi. But we see an ordinary in quotes, relationship between like Joe and Connie, and how he's been a fantastic mentor to her. And that's someone in your neighborhood, a middle school band teacher. As a teacher, I identify with some of my teachers, past teachers, being my heroes, which is why I ended up being a teacher. But I also appreciate, so not only the message of, live life and appreciate the small things, which we'll get to with the journal, but also ordinary is extraordinary. What we think of as ordinary. Like, I loved those moments of them like when 22 is experiencing life on Earth, how much joy she found with the little pine, like the little leaf seeds, helicopters falling, the smell of pizza. Little ordinary things can be extraordinary and still be a meaningful life.
I agree with that last part for sure. That's what really spoke to me. I was glad to hear that as a teacher, those parts resonated for you. I had a feeling that that part of the story would. For me, we haven't spent too much time on the art of the soul world because I think we had rightfully a focus on the living world and what's portrayed there. But I liked getting to see the expressions of 22. It's such a simple design of these soul creatures, but how they're able to convey emotions just kind of through eyebrows and eyes. But I feel like just as someone who has experienced depression, of course, you're going to read into your own part of the experience, but when 22 goes through the Hall of Everything and there's accompanying images there, page 136, and the character is just kind of like, meh about everything. When you are in a dark place of depression, like things that would normally excite you often don't. And people be like, oh, well, why don't you go do that? That's something you enjoy. And you're just like, meh. So for me, the message is to find spark in some of the smaller things. For 22, a very poignant moment is just as a little seed falls from a tree to the ground, and the beauty of that moment is what clicks for the character. So just finding something to break through, and it doesn't have to be your lifelong spark. Like Joe initially thinks like, oh, music must have been my spark that I'm assigned at birth, but it's not something permanent. It can be temporary sparks of inspiration.
Yeah, I thought that was an interesting distinction they make at the end. The counselors, the Jerrys and the Terrys, say, oh, you humans and your purpose, you think it's that simple. That final piece of her personality profile isn't necessarily like what your purpose in life is. It's just what's something that makes you want to live. And they find out that that's what gives these souls in the great before their earth pass is just the spark to just want to live life. It doesn't matter what it is. There's no purpose assigned. They just find something that they're like, this is cool. I want to just do something, whatever it is. So I thought that was an interesting message at the end, that it's not always about, I think we get bogged down a lot with, especially in the age of internet, social media, where we can life compare of finding a purpose and like a greatness and like, what is your thing? It's okay to not have a specific thing, or if your thing is not something that everyone else likes, it's okay.
Well, and I love the concept too in the film of mentorship, and in one of the rare instances in this book where there is a caption, if you turn towards the end of 171, it's the storyboard of the film, so what was used kind of to plan out and map out this story. And it's Earthbound, and the caption is, the intention behind this sequence was to capture all of the emotions of someone on the precipice of a life-changing opportunity. 22 is grappling with the fear of the unknown, and Joe successfully mentors her into taking the leap of a lifetime. And I thought that was a very poignant scene that really captured, the hesitation as she's heading toward this moment. The reminder that Joe is there for her, but then ultimately succeeding on her own through her next part of her mission in life.
One thing I did want to go back to when we were talking about you mentioned how beautiful the soul art is, and how they can portray such emotions. I love how you can tell the young quote souls from the old souls, I guess, like how all the little souls in the great before, they kind of reminded me of the little snow babies.
The snow geese.
Yes, the snow geese. But they don't have a lot of other personality. They're a round head with a tiny round body. But people like Joe and the people he meets on the escalator, since they've lived a life, their personality comes through in their soul. Like, he still has his hat and his glasses.
some facial features.
Yeah, some facial that make him distinctly Joe Gardner. And I thought that was really cool that it kind of also shows like as like again, it's not pre-assigned, you create it yourself.
Oh, I like that
In
interpretation.
life, what your personality and whatever looks like is not pre-assigned, because even though they were sending in the Great Before, like, you're going to go to these different
The
pavilions to
U
look
seminar.
Yes, the U
They
seminar.
rebranded.
That was really funny. Even though in the U seminar, certain little souls went to different
Personalities.
personality pavilions, they didn't emerge formed in any way. You still get to make your own personality. It's not something pre-assigned.
That's a great point.
But yeah, overall, I really enjoyed the artwork. We didn't even touch about half of the stuff in here. There's so much more about the soul world. There's lots of stuff that didn't make it into the film. Like, I was really impressed in the development, how expansive they designed this soul world, because we only saw the Great Beyond in the U seminar, but there's the Dream Eater, and we also saw the Lost Souls. But there's just so much that world building that they created that didn't even make it into the film. And then other characters like Moonwind. He had a cool character design. I enjoyed seeing some of that artwork as well. But yeah, overall, great film. I love the art. And I'm really glad that we were able to review this book.
Me too. And we have a bonus book, which
we have a bonus.
Technically haven't read because it's a journal.
Yes, and Courtney, you and I are both journalers. So this was a really cool book to get. Before we dive specifically into this, what made you want to start journaling? You and I made journals together in college.
We did.
So I want to know your journal journey.
I am an inconsistent journaler, and maybe with the help of this book, I will try to get back on track in the new year. But I feel like my approach to journaling is my journal is there for me when I need it. I journaled as a kid off and on. I think because I was an avid reader, I also had an interest in writing as a kid. So I would just like write down observations, but I am not a journaler who's like, I have every single day of my life chronicled for the past 23 years. Like I would love to be that and to be able to look back on it. But in terms of like consistent, I have filled out this journal. I've completed 2, the second of which you and I started in college, and then I like put it down for 3 years and picked it back up and finished it this early into 2020. I was on track to finish it at the end of 2019, but life just gets in the way and you don't journal. I have only a few entries. I actually picked it up about a week ago, and there's like, all right, I kicked it off at the end of March when I finished my other journal, and there's like an entry from April, and there's one from June, and then it's December, and I'm like, I feel like all my journal entries are like, hey, sorry, I haven't written in a while. I just like, I talk to my journal as
I do too.
my journal is my friend who listens to my thoughts. But for me, journaling, when it's there for me, is a way for me to process my thoughts. I'm more of like I don't know if the word is like subconscious. Like I kind of just like let stuff flow. Like there's not an organization. I don't really even have paragraphs in my journals. I kind of just like, here's what I'm processing and what I'm going through or what I just want to reflect on. It's not all negative. It can be moments that I want to cherish and write down. I definitely like to journal when I'm on vacation and like capturing those memories from the day. But what's your approach?
So I started journaling back in middle school. I think I'm on journal 25.
That's amazing.
So about last year, I pulled out all of my journals and I took a Sharpie marker and numbered them on the inside cover so that I know where they are in chronological order without having to always look at the dates.
I date my journals.
I do too. I put dates at the top, but once you have so many books, I'm like, where did I start? Which one do I go to next? So the journaling for me started because I just liked writing as a kid. I wrote short stories and weird poems, all of which I think are now missing. But so I kind of started journaling for those reasons. And then when middle school, I I've always been a history kid. There was no doubt. I can pinpoint. I knew I was going to study history in 4th grade as a career. I can pinpoint that for you. Thank you, Mrs. Codwell. 4th grade social studies unit, fell in love with it. So because of that, I started reading a lot of Dear America books, and I got really into the idea of I need to chronicle my life. Not necessarily like a daily thing, but like how cool would that be like 50 years from now or 100 years from now, or my kids or grandkids or whoever gets my journals, reads and learns about me. And that's such a moving through my history education journals are such a rich historic account that historians rely on, that I was like, I can do that too. I don't know if they'll be as interesting as a soldier in the Civil War, but that's where I don't know,
Emily. We're living through a global pandemic, so
I know,
it might be a good first person account.
I have remarked in my journals a few times that I'm like, I don't really talk a lot about world events. It's very focused on
personal,
my personal. That I'm like, now and then maybe I should like comment on what's happening around me, like elections, and I have talked about the pandemic a little bit more in my recent journal. So I used to be more consistent, and then through high school, definitely in college, I think I've developed more of what my journaling style is for me, which is not a consistent every day or even every month. It's there when I need it, but I do usually fill one journal, like Moleskine size.
Yes, it has to be Moleskine.
Although I have gotten the Amazon Basics version, which is similar to the Moleskine in size, dimension, paper style, and lines, but about $15 cheaper. And I have some odd non-Moleskine ones that like people have gifted me because they know I'm a journaler. So I'm like, yes, I have to use these because someone gave them to me. But now that through college, the ones that you and I crafted, so we Mod Podge. Okay, listeners, this is where this comes from. We decided we were journalers, and we both had our Moleskine journals, and we thought it'd be fun to cut out pictures and stuff from magazines.
Like full magazine collage. We were helping each other find the right color letters for. I was like, here's a stack of like 12 Cosmopolitan magazines. Glamour, let's go for it.
Yes, I actually had to print out one piece. I printed out Gene Kelly.
Oh yes.
Singing in the Rain, and I put Dancing Through Life, I think, on the front. So both combination of Wicked and Singing in the Rain.
So the reason we did this, mostly, I think you finished a journal and I finished a journal, and I had just broken up with like my college boyfriend of 2 years as we were going into our senior year, and I was like, Emily, come over, keep me company, and let's make journals in the rec room of my apartment place.
While watching Disney films.
Mine had my personal mantra, which is Disney related, which is keep moving forward. So I was going for black and white letters. It looks like a ransom now, like from a film where you like cut out the letters. But you helped me find, because I am particular. I was like, I want them all to be black and white letters. And certainly in magazines, there's different colors and types. And I was like, help me find the letters. And I'm also bad with scissors. So you cut out an arrow for me, and it's a beautiful arrow on the front. So that was fun, but this is a different journal, and it's okay that it's not a Moleskine, because this is more of a guided approach to journaling. As what you and I have described is kind of a free form, just like, here's what I feel like telling my journal about today. This actually has prompts, so I'm looking forward to following along with it. There's not numbered pages, but just flipping through kind of towards the middle, one of them says, what compliments would you give yourself?
Oh
List
my God,
at least
stop.
3.
I literally opened the same page.
I love it. 6 is even better. Like, hello, that's just so encouraging. And then on the next page, this is kind of more, I guess, guided, like where my journal goes, but this says, sometimes we're in our heads so much that we forget about our bodies, which can experience all kinds of amazing things without us even noticing. Spend 5 minutes really listening to your body and focusing on your senses. What did you notice? Did you smell anything? Where do your eyes rest? What are some textures or sounds around you? Well, like self-mantras, activities I'm good at, I would like to be better at. Some of them repeat, and that's the gratitude-based pieces, just like writing down what you're thankful for. So I'm curious, have you ever specifically kept a gratitude journal or done something that's more instructive like this one?
I haven't, although I will say, as a public school educator, there's a lot of movement in social emotional learning in public schools, particularly in this time of the pandemic, that I'm being educated a lot through gratitude and mindfulness to try to bring those things into our classrooms to help students, particularly through this distance learning and upside down world that happened overnight. So I've never done this before, but getting this book now with some professional development behind me, the idea of gratitude and why practicing it is helpful wasn't new to me. And I think I'm now a little bit more willing, whereas before I've seen these before and I'm like, okay, cool. No thanks. I'm going to stick to my cool free-form journaling. Not that that matters. But now that I have a little bit more education and discussions, particularly with other staff members who do practice and how that's helped them and what they get out of it, I'm a lot more willing and look forward to using prompts. And I think that might help you and I, who we say we're sporadic. We tell our journal almost every entry, it's been a while. I've started looking at prompts and I'm like, maybe that'll help me journal more, that if I don't feel the need maybe to necessarily discuss what's in my head, I can practice writing or discover other things that are in my head if I have a prompt.
Yeah, I like that it's not strictly a gratitude journal. I've certainly looked at those, but then I've been like, or I could just write 5 bullet points in my own journal and write down what I'm thankful for. I like that there's variety. It's not just keeping track of that, because I actually did try that approach once. It was one of those weird, like, I guess, right place, right time type moments. I don't know. It was in the middle of my depression in college. I was just like home in the middle of the day because of my class schedule. And I do not watch Dr. Oz. I actually don't like watch a lot of daytime television. But I guess I was flipping channels, nothing was on, and as I've described, I was in a meh mood, and I kind of just like let the TV be, but it felt like the TV spoke to me. Sorry, this is going to sound really out there, but it was like Goldie Hawn was on, and she was talking about depression, and she said like one of her breakthrough things was to just end or start each day by saying what she was grateful for. So it's not something I practice regularly, and it was that I just incorporated into my own journal. I was like, I don't need to buy a specific journal for that. I did find it helpful to like find the small sparks within my day, but it's not something I've done consistently. So I like that this is part of the practice, but it's not the only purpose of this journal. So I think I'll enjoy those moments when it does come to those pages. But here's a question I have for you that we did not put on the sheet. Do you think you'll go through this journal in order, or will you flip around and...
It might be a little of both. Being a historian at heart, I'm all about chronology. So I think I'm going to attempt to go in order, but if I don't feel that specific prompt I'm on, I might go to like the next one, but not like go to the middle of the book, then the end of the book, then the front of the book kind of a deal.
Yeah. But I think you absolutely can if that's someone's
yeah, and
style.
It's encouraged. It says, I believe it was on one of the press release sheets that they specifically designed it to not have to be chronological. Although I will say the only 2 prompts that do kind of matter is the first prompt and the last prompt are the same, but then they ask you to go back and reflect on how, so like the first prompt I actually did today. It says, fill the page with words or drawings that represent your passions, interests, fears, and feelings, and all the things that are meaningful to you today and define who you are. And then that's the last one as well. And then it asks you to go back to the first prompt and see what's changed.
I also like that in terms of structure, not everything is lined. There's certainly spaces that are, but that prompt is just the text and a blank page. Like, it encourages you to draw. Like, journaling doesn't have to just be writing specifically. It can be other moments. So not only is there variety in the prompts, but also the format of those prompts and how it wants you to reflect. Sometimes it has numbered spots. Sometimes it has just 2 or 3 pages of lined area. But also in between each prompt is beautiful, furthering the art of soul. Like,
yeah, I love the colors.
Collage style, colorful images.
Yeah, I love the colors. You picked the prompt that was my favorite, which was give yourself some compliments, because that is something that I particularly struggle with, is accepting compliments, um, and complimenting myself. So that was one that stood out to me, that I was like, ooh, this is one that would be hard for me to do, but would be meaningful for me to do. And I do like the prompts that say, like, what are things, I like how they phrase this, that went right. So not necessarily things you're thankful for today, but things that went right. And I think that can be a good one for me, that sometimes I feel like the world is against me. And it's like, no, I got the laundry done today. And, or whatever, even if it's simplistic, there were things that didn't go wrong. So your whole day wasn't, maybe it was a meh day, but the world is not against you.
Yeah, I think I want to get an order because towards the end, I like the prompt that says, think about your life a year ago. What has changed? List 3 happy things that have happened this year that you did not anticipate. So I hope I'm well into 2021 as I'm working on this journal and that things have changed.
Yes, I actually noted on, after that first prompt on page 8, there's a blank page of just lines. I dated it for today, and I noted that you and I are recording this podcast. This is why I have this book, and I wrote down that I am hoping to use this throughout 2021. So in accompanying my normal journal that I will start in 2021, my usual journal, I hope to also do this one. Maybe if I only even do just one a week.
I like that. Like, it doesn't, I think that's where I start to beat myself up, like, oh, dear diary, sorry, I haven't written in a month. Like, I'll get in a good groove. But knowing that it doesn't have to be every day, like, the journal is going to be there for me when I need it. But that is something that I want to focus on for 2021 as well.
Speaking of 2021, journaling and building positive mindsets is a great New Year's resolution. This is our last podcast of 2020. What a year it has been. But Courtney, do you have any resolutions, or I like to say goals, for the coming year?
I think I'd like to take journaling as my goal. A few years ago, I made a goal of reading 52 books in 1 year, and I did that. And then this year I didn't make a reading goal, but I read 100. So I think I'm good in terms of that. I don't need to exceed that. I feel like I go off and on like healthy tracks, but I don't like to make that a focus, because then I feel like I'm sometimes setting myself up to fail. So I feel like maybe certainly I want to maybe be a little more active, since being at home kind of took me away from going to the gym. But just I think I want to practice self-care. That's something that's important to me. I think resolutions and goals can be continuations of things that you already put into practice, and this will be a great tool for me to reflect on where I am in my journey for wellness and mindfulness. How about you?
So I have a few. I have some standing, I like to say goals versus resolutions. Like, what are just things I want to accomplish versus necessarily change. I don't know. Goals has had a better connotation, positive connotation for me versus New Year's resolutions. Um, but I actually use my journal to record those. So that's how I start every journal
nice.
every year that I start, is I write down on the first page my goals for the year. And then I keep like 5 pages, or like the first like 3 or 4 pages blank. Like my reading goal, I have it then numbered. Like this past year was 25. I did not quite surpass my reading like you did. I made it to 36 though.
That's fantastic.
So I like record what books I read, and then I also mark which ones were for Book the Mouse. And then every year for the last like 3 years, I've learned to make 5 new things, like cook, whatever that is, because that's something I enjoy. So I tend to make my goals kind of oriented towards things, hobbies or things that I enjoy, because then it kind of forces me to make time in my life for the things that I enjoy. So I have my reading goal this year will be 30 books, because I think we will emerge from this pandemic. So I don't want to be unrealistic that like 45 or something, because that would be more than what I did this year. So I think 30 is a realistic goal. Learn to cook 5 new things. And And I want to get more into the classic films that I enjoy so much that I said I want to watch 10 more films on the AFI top 100 list.
I owe you a list of films from like 3 months ago, so I will talk to Doug about that. But
you and Doug can have input on what 10 films I should watch, because I made that goal years ago that I wanted to watch all of the films on AFI's top 100, and I've fallen off of that. So I was like, this might be the year. I'm just going to pick 10.
Yeah, 10.
Knock 10 more off that I haven't seen
already.
So I'm not starting from scratch. If I've already watched it, it's got a check mark. So those are some of my goals for this year, and they will all be recorded in my journal, because then I like going back and looking at, because then I'll go back and check them off and date when I finished it.
Yeah, we should touch base at the end of next year.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
How it went.
But for any listeners who haven't journaled, Courtney and I highly recommend it. Even if, like you said, bullet points, 5 words, it can be really interesting. And then I start picking up my journal for other reasons. Like I write down a quote that I heard that I really liked. There's just lots of random things in there. Just
like the personalities in the U seminar, it is completely unique to you and your own experience. So I think this journal is a great reference for the film, or a resource, as we often like to point people. I think the artwork certainly is. It feels like our resources are the books themselves, but as always, we like to leave you with additionals. So it should be no surprise to any listeners of this podcast, if you're a regular, that I love my bonus features. And I was very pleased to see that with this exclusive release to Disney Plus, it's not one of those where, hey, we released it, but you can also buy a digital copy the same day. There are extras on the menu. Now, I have not had a chance to dig into them because this came out on Christmas, and I also was like, oh my gosh, I haven't watched all my Christmas movies that I like. Even on Christmas Day, I realized I hadn't watched Elf. So I was playing Christmas movie catch up over the weekend, because to me, Christmas, I still get to enjoy that feeling until New Year's Eve. But just scrolling through on Disney Plus right now, the first one is an 8-minute one called Astral Taffy that says, get an in-depth look at the artistry and technical innovation that went into creating the sets and characters of Soul's world. So that feels like a great accompaniment to the Art of Soul book. But there's Into the Zone, the music and sound of Soul, jazz greats, just going into the history of jazz, Not Your Average Joe, going into, it says, see the thought and care that went into crafting Joe and his story, and Pixar's first film to feature a Black leading character. Pretty deep for a cartoon. How the filmmakers tackled big questions like, what is the meaning of life? So plenty to check out there. Always glad to see bonus features on Disney Plus. But what would you like to point our listeners to?
So I'm going to point our listeners back to Chronicle Books, that if you enjoy art books, this is kind of, like I said earlier in the podcast, this is a new one for you and I this year. 2020 brought us a lot of artwork and really diversified our reading. So if you've been enjoying art books, or if art books are something you love, particularly for some of your favorite films, Chronicle Books has published several art of film books, including, I'm looking at a few here, The Art of Frozen, Frozen 2, Big Hero 6, Zootopia, Toy Story. If it'll load. They also have They Drew As They Please series, which features lots of different concept artists over the decades. The Art of Onward, The Overall Art of Pixar, just name a few. They have so many art books, Art of Tangled, The Color of Pixar. So there's lots of art books, and that's only the first 2 pages of Chronicle Books page. When I typed in the search word Disney, lots of books come up, including all of these art books. So there's lots to choose from if you enjoy art, if you like having these on your shelf, or exploring your favorite film. This could be a great way to, if you have a favorite Pixar film, favorite Disney film, get the art, explore a little bit more of the talented artists who helped create your favorite films.
And they also are responsible for our next book, our first book of 2021 as well.
Yes, so we're going to return because Christmas, it was very nice from our friends at Chronicle Books to spread a little Christmas cheer our way. They also sent us a beautiful book, The Disney Princess, A Celebration of Art and Creativity, which we're excited to discuss in early January. Here's the description from the Chronicle Books site. The Disney Princess is a one-of-a-kind celebration of the timeless Disney characters who have enchanted audiences for generations. This landmark book serves as a definitive visual history of the Disney Princess from 1937 to today. Fans and collectors have the chance to get an inside look of how each of the princesses came to be, with behind-the-scenes stories and stunning art from the legendary Disney Archive. From Snow White to Moana, the Disney Princess explores how the personality, style, and spirit of each princess developed and evolved. It features insights from directors and artists, and even photos of the live-action actors and models who inspired the animators.
Well, we have lots in store for 2021, including more guest readers, more author interviews, but I'm really excited that we are kicking the year off with this book. We have had it in our possession for like 3 months now, but we had kind of planned out the end of the year for ourselves, and when we got this, I was like, oh my gosh, I can't wait to do it because the book is so pretty.
It's so beautiful.
In the meantime, though, you can catch us on an upcoming episode of Notably Disney. The host, Brett, was kind enough to ask us back, along with some other podcast pals, to discuss the recent Disney Plus announcements and reflect on the first year of the service. We've enjoyed having Brett on our show. We've appeared on his, so we're happy to appear again, and we'll be sure to post that on social media once the episode is released. And speaking of social media, you can find us, Book of the Mouse Club, on Twitter and Instagram at Book of the Mouse. Email us, as always, with comments or ideas to bookofthemouseclub@gmail.com. And please be sure to leave a review on iTunes so others can find our podcast and read and listen along with us. You can find me, Courtney, on Instagram at Great Gutsby. If you're looking for non-Disney books, I did keep myself sane in these quarantine times by staging photo shoots of most of my 100 books that I read. I am not doing that in 2021, but I did have a lot of fun doing it over the past few months. So you can catch them there. And most of I feel like my Disney chatter and discourse occurs on Twitter at Courtney_Guth.
And you can follow me, Emily, at both Twitter and Instagram on the same handle at Emily_McD. So listeners, I hope you keep up with us on social media as we go into the new year, 2021. 2020 has been quite a year. So Courtney, let's close out our last podcast of this incredible year. Please take it away.
Absolutely. This quote is from our main character of the film, Joe Gardner, and he says, "Life is full of possibilities. You just need to know where to look. Don't miss out on the joys of life." End quote. So take that with you and those good vibes into 2021, and we'll see you real soon.
Toodles!
The Mouse Club has no affiliation with the Walt Disney Company. The views and opinions expressed by hosts and participants are theirs and theirs alone. They do not represent the organizations or companies they happen to work for.